Good morning from Suriname. It's going to be another hot and steamy day here. It is 8 a.m. I'm waiting for our tour guide. We are heading out on a day trip today, going to do another cruise excursion. We're going to visit some more plantations and we are going to visit Jodensavanne, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is one of the oldest Jewish cemeteries in the Americas, if not the oldest. We're going to find out more about it today. And looking forward to the journey. Come along for the ride, folks. It's going to be a good one.
In the 1600s, Jodensavanne was the largest Jewish settlement in the Americas, and its synagogue was one of the oldest in the Western Hemisphere. Jodensavanne was the first and only place in the New World where Jews were granted a semi-autonomous, essentially self-governing settlement. And in order to attract Jewish settlers, the colonial Dutch government offered Jews special privileges, including freedom of religion and the right to establish their own courts. By 1700, 575 Jews were living in Jodensavanne and operating more than 40 plantations with the use of roughly 1,300 enslaved Africans. By the 19th century, the community started to fall into decline as most of the Jews in Jodensavanne moved to the capital, Paramaribo, due to the decline of the sugarcane industry. And after a huge fire in 1832, the settlement was left empty and the jungle began to swallow up what was once a thriving Jewish community. So join me today on this river journey as we travel along the Suriname River in a small boat to find out more about Jodensavanne and to see what is left of this historic community.
Our boat is pulling up. Here's our guide, Tony.
Hi.
And off we go.
Oké, zo beste mensen, welkom erbij. We gaan een beetje varen. De boot heet de Johanna, genoemd naar mijn...
Love being on boat rides when you get a nice breeze like this. Feels great. So this is the bridge that leads towards French Guiana. We're heading in that direction. Let's hear you sing again. You got a good singing voice. Sing, sing. Beautiful singing voice. Very good, very good.
The brackish water.
We're heading into the Larwick plantation. This was a sugar plantation.
Because it's still so wet, you have many of these types of channels, which were maintained with the locks. You can see one straight ahead. These channels would be used for irrigation and transportation of goods.
So the Larwick plantation here, this was a sugar plantation, and there's a guy named Rambo over here who is waiting for us. And it has a sign with a telephone number for Rambo if you need to use a toilet. So it says toilet, call Rambo at this number, but apparently Rambo's already there waiting. We're with Tony.
Oh, yes.
You're Mr. Rambo?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yes.
I'm Dave.
Okay.
You're the guy with the toilet.
Yes, yes, yes.
You're the famous Rambo?
Yes, yes. You see that you're right there.
It's a good business you have, huh?
No, not a business.
It's not a business?
It's a social business.
Social business. What do you do? You live here?
I live here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it a nice place?
Yeah, yes. I was born here.
You were born here?
No.
Not born
The
here.
city.
You're from the city?
Yeah.
You came out here
Go
to...
for stay here.
You like it here?
Yeah, because we live in a village, eh? It's
Nice and quiet?
Very quiet. And the village is very quiet.
Yeah.
No?
Nice. Toilet in the area, call Rambo at this number right here. This is the canal that leads up to this plantation. This guy's going back and forth with bananas today. He's going back and forth from his farm, bringing bananas back and forth to the village. Nice little visit here. It's a pretty little area. Here's a bridge 7 or 8 years ago. A drunk captain smashed into this bridge. And look at it now, connecting these two Amerindian villages that also have some Creole Jews. We're heading to Jodensavanne right now, just about to dock. All right. So this is exciting. We're heading to see one of the oldest Jewish communities in the Americas. No longer here, but this was a thriving Jewish community from the 1670s all the way up until the early 1820s. We'll learn a little bit more about the history, but just real briefly, I guess it started, the Jewish migration to Suriname started in the 1630s during the Spanish Inquisition, people coming from the Iberian Peninsula, Jews fleeing persecution on the Inquisition in the Iberian Peninsula, started to come to Suriname. And the Dutch authorities gave them certain rights and privileges. At the time, the capital was called Willoughbyland. Paramaribo was called Willoughbyland right now, as sort of a fledgling Dutch settlement. And they wanted to encourage Jewish migration to this area. And so they were granted rights and privileges. And they started to settle just a little bit upstream from where we docked here, just beyond this bridge over here. And then they migrated over here to this area, and they were producing sugarcane, and with the use of slave labor, so they were also slave owners and slave traders. The slave population here, the enslaved people, supposedly outnumbered the Jewish community, but the Jewish community by one point numbered about 2,000 or so. So it was a very big and thriving Jewish community. There was a synagogue here. It was built in 1685. And so this is quite an ancient community we're stepping up to see today. UNESCO World Heritage Site as well, too. I believe it is the only one. No, there are a couple. I believe there are a couple in Suriname. So I believe also the Central Suriname Reserve is also a World Heritage Site. But I believe this is the only historical World Heritage Site. Oh, no, wait a second. I stand corrected. I think Paramaribo, the historic center of Paramaribo, is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Those were Portuguese Jews, and they were allowed to freely practice their religion here, which was something that they were not allowed to do in Portugal. And it says that there were more than 1,000 enslaved people here, Africans, by about 1684, and about 200 more about this as well too. But so why did the place fall into disrepair and was essentially swallowed by the jungle in the early 1820s? I believe it was because of some of the rights and privileges that the Jewish community had enjoyed since the 1600s were revoked from them during a period of anti-Semitic, feeling. And so the Jews started to leave this area, and there are still Jews remaining in Suriname today, but not nearly as many, and obviously this community fell into a small museum here, but it's only in Dutch, so if you do not read Dutch, make sure you have a good guide here, or at the very least a guide. The last actual residents of this place were a group of 139 Nazi sympathizers who were rounded up and interned here in 1942, and they lived here for 4 years. They were kept prisoners here, I guess, for 4 years. They're from the Dutch East Indies. And that's it. So that group of 139 Nazi sympathizers are the last people who actually lived here. Ruins of this grand synagogue behind me, which when I say grand, it's hard to imagine that now because the place is mostly fallen apart. But here's what it did look like. And so constructed in 1685, it says that it was the first synagogue of architectural significance on the American continent. So isn't that interesting? So there was a fire here also in 1832, which destroyed a lot of the houses in this village too. Well, the synagogue remained in use until about 1865, which is the end of the U.S. Civil War.
They could have their own tribunal, judge their own court cases, have their own militia, have their own military force, something they could not have in other settlements. They could also join the militia of the government and patrol the routes along with them, something that was not permissible in other colonies. Keep their shops open on Sunday, the day of the Lord, in a Christian community. And Paramaribo was a large Christian community. But the Shabbat is Saturday, so on Sunday, they asked special permission from the governor to keep the shops open, which they were granted.
Here's the jungle right behind the synagogue. An idea of the width of this tree, how wide it is. This is the Beth Hayan Jewish Cemetery. So these would have been the leaders of the community, maybe?
Yes, very prominent members. These belong to the family de la Parra, where we came out of the forest and we saw the brick kitchen
Yeah.
remnants. It was part of
This
this
is
family's
1825. Yeah.
estate.
Look at this one, is very elaborate here.
Go empty at some point. The angels symbolizing the gatekeepers to heaven, of course. And then you have the altar with the bread symbolizing body, soul, and spirit. And then, of course, you have the angel cutting down the tree of life.
This grave dates to 1739, and it says that this person, David Rodriguez Monsanto, killed in 1739, it says, by cruel, rebellious Negroes. So those were rebellious, enslaved people. Supposedly the oldest grave in here is from the late 1680s, but most of the ones you see are 1700s, and there's also some in the early 1820s as well too, like early 1800s, I should say. Super interesting. So this is the Creole Cemetery here. This is called the Creole Cemetery. The cemetery is only for free Creole blacks. We do not know where the enslaved people were buried in this area, according to the guide. What an interesting place. God, the history here and the fact that you're in this jungle, just incredible. When I flew my drone, I was like, wow, look at this. We're just so incredibly isolated here. Now, we just got rained on here too, but wow, what an absolutely fascinating place. Definitely recommend this one. Now we're gonna have a long boat ride back to Parabarimo. We're stopping for lunch, I think, someplace. But thank you folks so much if you stayed with me this long. Thank you so much for joining me today. And always, I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate if you'd help me out. Like the video, comment on it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Follow me in my travels around the world. And thank you so much, folks. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.